There you go, you're streaming. Try it now.
One button. Push one
Yay,
button.
we have a hero.
I do this for the church,
Great. Then you can lend a hand.
although that's totally different than our setup.
But it looks like you understood it.
You're hired.
Thank you, that's just what I need. Another job.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be retired.
All right, it is 6:30. We'll call the meeting to order. Thank you everyone for being here. Julie, would you mind taking the minutes?
That was kind of a, Julie, will you take the minutes? But yeah, no, I can.
Julie, will you take the minutes? Nobody wants to have to read my chicken scratches.
Okay, what time is it, 6:30?
Yeah. Martha's the only one not here. She's a bit under the weather. Okay. In June, this committee discussed the release of closed session minutes from full board meetings. I sent those on to the state's attorney. She got back with me in time for the July full board meeting and recommended a couple of sessions that we release, and we did so. There were a couple of other sessions that had minutes and the documents that I sent that she didn't get, so I made double sure and got them to her. And she has reviewed them and emailed me and said that she didn't see any reason why those could not be released. She said she had reviewed the minutes from 3 different sessions. One of those we had already released. She said these can all be open. I believe that is the end of the list of sessions currently held closed.
I'll make a motion to present to the full board to open the closed session minutes.
Okay.
I'll second.
Motion by Julie, second by Heath. Those are the June 27th, 2023 and July 13th, 2023 minutes.
Okay, say those dates again, I'm sorry.
You're right, June 27th,
I don't have them.
2023, and July 13th, 2023.
Okay.
If I print this out real quick, I
sorry.
always forget.
Yeah, so, and you should all have those. Those would have been sent out ahead of our June 4th legislative meeting. And so everyone should have those. We probably went, or we should have gone through those prior to that meeting. So is there any discussion on the release of the minutes from those 2 closed sessions?
No.
Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. The next item on the list requires some explanation. It has been conveyed to, I think, many of us by many that perhaps we should consider the possibility of a county board size proportional to population that better coincides with other counties of similar population in Illinois. And so to that end, actually for a couple of years now, some research has been done. One option that will be open to the county board later on down the road after the next census, which is in 2030, will be to move from multi-member districts to single-member districts. Now, that does not mean there will be the same number of districts. This is just multi-member to single-member districts. That's all this is. And the referendum that this agenda item references is advisory. It is not binding. So if a future board wants to place another similar or the same referendum on a future ballot, they may. If they want to ignore the results or accept the results and apply them, they may. But according to statute, which I listed in the resolution, which is 55 ILCS 5/2-3002, a referendum would be required in order just to open the door. That's my understanding. And so I do want to make it clear that this doesn't hold anybody's feet to the fire. This simply opens a door for a path that may be pursued when the time comes. But this path will not be open if something like this is not done in time, like it wasn't done in time last time.
So the referendum would just be to go to single-member districts, but the number of districts is still...
Yeah, that's based on population.
Right, and the districts themselves, the way the law stands now, have to be within 5% of the average population per district. So you can't have 4,000 people in one and 2,000 people in the other. They have to be within 5% of the average. So right now they are just shy of 2,000 people average per district.
What determines the number of districts, though?
The county board determines the number of districts. That will be done after the 2030 census, ahead of the 2032 election cycle.
So are we going to try to get this on this year's, or on 24's referendum?
Yeah,
Or ballot, I'm sorry.
And my reasoning for that is I think that the largest cross-section of the population should have this appear before them, and you have a larger voter turnout in a presidential election year in a general election. That means if we want to have that larger cross-section, either 24 or 28, because 32 will be too late. And if we want those criteria, putting it off to 28 would be the last minute.
No, okay, I'll make a motion to take the referendum before the full board.
Okay. Julie makes the motion and Heath jumps on the second. Now I do want to share some things. I found in some discussion that perhaps the second whereas might be a little, and I just explained what that one is, the cross-section voter turnout, might be confusing, might be unnecessary. So if no one had a problem, I was going to make a motion to amend to strike the second paragraph. So if you want to read that or look at that, or I could read it.
Are you going to do that tonight or at the board meeting?
I was going to do that tonight and send our final version to the board. I think that kind of stuff is better handled in committee than in a full board meeting, because the board's too big. I can simply.
If you get that, do you have it pulled out?
Yeah.
I just
The second
the last one.
I got this printed.
The second paragraph, right?
Yeah, the second whereas.
Oh, yeah, that's not necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would strike that.
So I'm going to make I guess a mass motion to amend here soon. That would be one, striking that second paragraph. Also, the
Would you just so I don't have
the print in red, I sent my draft to the state's attorney, and she was kind enough to go through it. And the print in red is what she either added or changed. And I agreed with her that an explanatory statement would be a good idea. I thought perhaps not including I want to make sure I get this right. Okay, the phrase,
I found it.
the
I
phrase,
figured out which one was reading.
the phrase with different overlapping multi-year terms. That will not change if this referendum is passed and the results are adopted. And I thought that might be confusing. And so I asked her, and she said, she agreed that simple was better, the language was just a suggestion.
Well, I assumed if we went to single member districts, would only half the districts be new every time?
Correct, it would be 6 and 5 or 5 and 6 every 2 years. So they would still be overlapping. That wouldn't change. And so it was, and like I say, I did ask her, and she said it's up to you whether we want to include that language or not. And I thought keeping it simple might be best. So if we kept her explanatory statement, which I thought was a really good idea, but cut it off after the word district, I thought that would be, that would avoid extra confusion, potential extra confusion. And
Okay, so spell it out for me. Explanatory statement, we're keeping that.
yeah, it would say,
All the way to district in the third sentence, and then striking everything after district, right?
yeah, we would strike the phrase with,
Oh, with different, oh, okay.
yeah, just that phrase. And also she, I believe, is correct in replacing my shall with her should, since it is advisory and non-binding.
Okay.
So I will make the motion to amend, to strike paragraph 2 and strike the phrase of the explanatory statement after the word district.
Yeah, we would take out this entire paragraph.
Can I get a second on my motion to amend?
I'll second.
Mr. McCormick makes the second. Any discussion on the motion to amend? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries, thank you. And now back to the newly amended original motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries, thank you. All right, moving on, everyone. Yeah. That should say 7-4 minutes. Your agenda says the approval of the 7-2 minutes. That should say 7-4. That would be a typo on my part.
Wait a minute, 7-4?
Yeah.
We wouldn't have had a meeting on 7-4.
Oh, no, we wouldn't. I'm sorry.
It'd be 6.
It is 7-2. I was thinking June
That's what I'm
4th.
thinking.
We met on June 4th. That's what I was
You
thinking.
got it right. You're talking yourself right out of
I
that.
am, sorry. Okay, approval of the 7-2 legislative minutes, and those would have been sent out on 7-2 after the meeting. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make, oh, okay. Doug, I'll let you do it.
I'll approve.
Mr. Keenan makes the motion, Mr. McCormick seconds. Any discussion on those minutes? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries, thank you. At this time, is there any old business to bring before the committee?
The only thing I wanted to discuss a little bit about the timekeeping policy that we approved. Has there been any further discussion about possibly logging any issues with that software?
Logging issues with the software.
Logging issues, any issues, outages and stuff like that. Here's where I'm going. They talked about ARPA funds. Is ARPA funds nearing the end of term for them?
They have to be allocated by, I believe it was the end of the year, and they have to be expended by, is it the end of 27 or is it
26.
26, end of
So-
26.
So by the end of the year. Where I was going with that, if there needed to be any special modifications to that software, and I know how that stuff works, I call it out-of-the-box software.
Mm.
It's not in-house software where it can just be modified. You go to a programmer and say, hey, we need these. You're going to have the vendor modify it. If you've got ARPA funds that are going to expire anyway, and you need to spend that money and allocate it, if you need special stuff done to that timekeeping system with the vendor, we would need to get that in as soon as possible and get that allocated.
I think that may be a really good idea, in addition to the additional training that we've discussed
Yes.
several times. If there's anything that does need tweaked in there, I think we should probably start generating a list. And we did pay for the software and the hardware originally out of a project line in ARPA funds. So it would make sense to use that. So if there are any such issues, I agree it would make sense to use that.
And we would need to get the vendor in here to, if we've come up with that stuff that needs to be addressed, the vendor to come in, let us know what stuff is feasible to be changed, timeline for that, and the costs, obviously.
What continues to get me, though, is some aren't having a problem at all.
And having 26 and a half years with the Department of Corrections in doing exactly this, I ran multiple platform softwares, and one of them was CICS, which was basically property control, timekeeping, payroll, all that. And Corrections had 11,000 employees, so you can imagine having 11,000 employees to train versus 200 or 300.
Yeah.
And basically what it come down to is training, having employees, first thing they do, they go through an orientation process, timekeeping, all that was, they go through that training process. They would require certification on that before they would be allowed to even go into that position. So they would have a certification that they know how to use these systems. And we had to address certain institutions. You had maximum security, you had juvenile facilities. Everybody had a little bit different shifts, different differentials. All that had to be incorporated in the system. And it took a lot of time to get that all ironed out. There's not a such thing as a timekeeping system for an entire agency or an entire. So I understand why they're having some issues.
Mhm.
And you are going to have people that are computer illiterate. They're just not going to
Not one of them.
get it as well as other people. So you can't compare. But we can address them issues.
Yeah. But if there are things that we find are technological issues.
Yes, and that's what I'm talking about. Stuff that could be incorporated in this system to address these shift differentials.
Mhm.
And the best place to go is with the people out there that are using the system. Let us know what problems you're having and what will simplify the process. What do you need
Yeah.
for the sheet you fill out, the spreadsheet, this time card, whatever? What do you need on there to make this work easier? That software company should be able to incorporate that.
Mhm. Okay. Any other old business? Any new business? I think the draft of the handbook has been sent out, and the department heads and the HR expert from CIRMA are bouncing dates back and forth for everyone to get together and meet and go over the handbook. And so that process is moving along. Any other new business before we move on? Okay. Hearing none, we'll open the floor for public comment. Anybody, everybody? Go ahead.
Can
you tell me what the status of the audit is, if it'll be done within the 60 days that we receive that letter? I mean, we're under 60 days now, but can you tell me if it will be completed by then?
I was hoping it would be completed long before now, so my best answer is I sure as heck hope so.
But you don't know, you haven't heard any updates on whether it will be from,
Yes, there was an
Bobby
update.
did.
Bobby did send an update out on that. He has talked to them. We could pull that up and give you part of that update.
yes, because I'd like to know that, I mean, our funds are important, our grants that we receive.
Absolutely.
And I don't feel like it's already been past 15 months. I don't feel like there's been any urgency. You're discussing putting on a referendum something that doesn't even apply until 2030. But yet you're not discussing our audit. Why hasn't it been discussed with the board? Why haven't we made recommendations to go to the board for a breach of contract? Because clearly it's in breach. And has anybody seen any of the auditors actually physically in this building since you hired them?
Trish,
And how
I
many
sent a
times?
letter to Ruth Woolery asking about any legal recourse we had. And
What, can you speak up just a little?
I sent an email to Ruth asking about any legal recourse we had, and she has not yet at this point addressed that. So that has been discussed. But we received an email from Bobby stating that the Benford and Brown has been in contact with IDOT about the status of the audit. The auditors have expressed that the audit will be done within the 60-day time frame, and grant funding loss is not imminent from his understanding. Basically, some of the delays were just from, as we've stated before, previous items not being fixed with past audits, and so they're trying to get them caught up.
Okay, here's my question. You guys have been on the board for 20 months. What specific audit finding has not been addressed by you to fix, so we are not sending these votes?
$750,000 of payroll issues at the sheriff's department in over 5 years.
Can you, one more?
$750,000 in payroll problems. That was done in the forensic audit from the time period of 2015 to, I believe, 2020.
That was the
We
specific
asked,
finding?
yeah, there's a whole book. We asked, back when Nicole was still seated, asked her to help us take that on, and she didn't feel she was properly suited for that because that's not her area of expertise. So she then had said that she was going to gather, speak with, I think 3 attorneys, oh, nobody was on the board at that time, 3 attorneys to meet with the board to possibly look at getting that corrected. And unfortunately, she resigned before that ever came to fruition. And I don't know that it's ever been even discussed since then. So there are plenty, and hopefully when we get this audit, I asked today if we would be able to have someone from Benford and Brown either be here in person or via Zoom or something, and that's the indication that somebody would be here so that they can explain to us the issues that were not addressed previously.
Well, like I said, you've been here 20 months. I understand you went to Nicole, but you had a handling before, after Nicole. This has not been on agendas that I have seen to discuss this problem of the audit not being completed in a timely fashion. We're talking 15 months later. So just to say now I'm sending emails to Ruth, why weren't we doing this 9 months ago, 10 months ago? It seemed like the priority at that time was going after the dive team, it was going after animal control trucks, it was going after everything. But what's important, our funding, because we need it. And to hear that Benford and Brown contacted IDOT, why isn't our board chairman contacting IDOT to find out about our funding? Why is Benford and Brown, who is over 15 months late, contacting IDOT? Shouldn't that be our attorney? Shouldn't that be Bobby Orman as chair? Contacting IDOT?
I feel like the better contact person would be the auditors explaining why the audit is running late.
But I just looked at the email that said that they had problems in their own office, that they did not have, that they weren't able to complete it or they were struggling to complete it because they had issues come up in their own office. So that's a problem. And if I'm seeing this email, you should be seeing this email and asking yourselves, if they don't have the staff to complete our audit, then why are we continuing with them?
Okay, can I answer that? Then what you're asking is, we fire.
Okay, can you speak
You're
up?
saying, basically, you want them fired. If we fire them right now and bring in a new company, the best company in the world, they're not gonna have it done in 60 days.
I'm saying we paid out $45,000. Questions are now being asked that should have been asked 9 months ago, not today. It should have been asked 9 months ago. We wouldn't be sitting in this position if we weren't chasing the dive team, the animal control truck, selling our county farm, when the audit and our funds are the most important. You've been here 20 months, 20 months. And if you're saying there are findings that haven't been fixed, it is your job to be discussing those at county board meetings and getting them fixed so we're not sitting in this position. Accountability needs to be taken by the people that are sitting here on this board right now who've allowed us to be put in this position. Not it's their fault, it's these people's fault. When are we going to say, I take accountability, I should have been asking these questions, I should have been on the phone wondering why our audit's not done? And if it's a matter of findings, then why haven't you been saying, what is it you need? What is it you need to bring up to date that we can get working on fixing? So instead of putting fictitious referendums on the, to send to the board that isn't even relevant until 2030, why aren't we discussing real problems? Sometimes instead of playing the part of politician and pandering, you have to do the work. And the work is making sure we have an audit and have funding. And I'm very upset when I find out that it can impact our buses. I know several people who ride on those buses, elderly, disabled, students who go to Christian schools who use that bus. And it's scary for a lot of people. And to see nobody jumping up and down saying, hey, this is a problem here, that's concerning. Especially when I've seen you jumping up and down about other problems that didn't impact our whole county.
So I can help with some of that. When the board selects an auditor, the auditor has the obligation, the duty, the responsibility to gather the records and the information and perform the audit. But with what was it, 5 of the largest accounts that the county has not being audited by the last auditor last time, this current auditor had to go back further with more records and documentation to find a solid starting point. That has taken additional time.
I've not seen that through the emails, Mr. Williams. I have not seen any email that's mentioned that at all. What I have seen are emails saying we don't have the people to take care of this right now. We've had things come up.
I actually haven't seen that email, but I think what I just mentioned was said, was that in the full board meeting? Was that in the last meeting? I think.
It's been said multiple times.
Yeah,
It's been
that's-
said,
that's
but by
common.
who? Do they have, you got an email stating from that company that this has not been happening for, that it's not happened for the last so many years? Do you have an email from Benford and Brown backing up what you're telling me right now?
No.
No.
My
Of
hope
course
is
not.
that when we do get the audit and it's discussed, that it will be explained then.
Yeah, because
That's
if,
my request.
if 5 of the county's largest accounts didn't get audited in the last audit, that makes a problem for us and for those departments whose accounts pertain to them and for the current auditor.
Have you seen Benford and Brown here in the last 15 months at all in our courthouse?
I don't think they need to be.
They don't need to be.
Field work is in the contract. We paid out 50, field work means coming actually to the place and getting some information. I think they need to be. I've been a part of many audits. The people come in, they look, get information. I've never seen where it's done completely online like that. And my issue is, why did we keep sending the payments when we were not seeing results of any work? They got $15,000 initially, $15,000 after field work, and then I think they've got another $15,000 after something else. Why did we keep paying when we were not getting results?
Probably because it was in the contract to pay and they were working on
But what proof did you have that they were really working on it, Mr. Williams? Because I want to see something. I want to see that work is getting done.
Well, when they come here to present the audit, we'll have all of their work in front of us.
And we've been told multiple times, we were told in December that January we would have an audit. We were told sometime, I think in February before the election, we would have an audit. And now you're telling me this and you expect me to be able to have trust after we've been told multiple times that the audit was coming. How can we trust that? How? When we've been told that specifically in meetings. And that is, you could go look at the December tape. It was coming in January. You remember, yes. So how can we have trust in that as a county when you have people out there worrying about losing their busing service? How can we have trust in that? How can these people have some relief knowing that they're still going to have service to get to their jobs, to get to the grocery store?
Trish, on July 25th, after we received that letter from IDOT, I sent an email to Ruth asking her to make a formal written letter to Bedford and Brown for an explanation as to why the audit has been delayed, and in writing, request in writing a finalized date to receive the audit. Because I feel like when things are done in writing, it's more formal, it's more legitimate, it's got some kind of a, I don't know.
Teeth to it, I understand.
Yeah,
Yes.
and Ruth's response to me was that she had called them and that she would continue to try to call them on the phone.
Continue to try to call, was that meaning she wasn't getting through?
She spoke with Bedford and Brown,
Okay.
and she then said she would try to call them again. So I feel like if I'm doing something formally where I want a response, I want it in writing. That's why I requested that she write the letter. She has the better knowledge of how the wheels turn, and she, I guess, thought a phone call was a better option. So that's where we stand with that.
Yes, and you can tell me one more time that there are specific where it says findings, because that's how it is on the audit report, that it specifically states that these 5 departments have not been audited, or it specifically states that about the discrepancies with the payroll, managerial problems, not corruption problems. That it was a finding that was actually on the report, and can you give me the dates of those
The
reports?
forensic audit?
Huh?
The forensic audit?
The past audits of the findings for why we're so...
We'll have to wait till we get the draft of this new audit. I don't know specifically what they're talking about, no.
Well, the reason I ask that is because the treasurer keeps bringing up that there was all kinds of decentralization, and I want to know if that's specifically listed as a finding. Decentralization, and what years was that listed as a finding?
I think that has been listed as a problem.
Can
within
you give me the
county.
dates? Because I want to see.
I'm not
the
sure it was in an
specifics.
audit. I think it was from our, it might have been, it might have
I think
been.
it was. If I remember correctly, in 2020, I remember, in 2020 or 21, I remember reading an audit report that had 4 findings in it, and I kind of think decentralization was one of the specific words used.
Yeah.
On the finding.
What's that?
On the finding.
I
Yes.
think that was mentioned.
And I'm able to get those and look at that,
Oh,
correct?
absolutely.
Audits
Yes.
of public records.
And see, part of the problem that has come up with this audit is that this auditor has someone on staff that has a master's in governmental accounting. So they're not a different kind of CPA. They do this kind of thing. And so when they find that accounts haven't been audited in the past, they go back to the root, the last solid starting point that they have to get you an accurate stance now. And they're supposed to be able to go to one place in the county to get all the information and documentation they need. But since we are so decentralized and all the records and reports and documents are strewn all across the county, the auditors had to take a tremendous amount of time, effort, and energy to
Actually, that's
A
not
mass-
quite correct, Mr.
to
Williams. A lot
mass
of
all
places
that.
have finance offices. They're not all located in the treasurer's office, as you're stating. But the decentralization, you would have known about. Supposedly, there was some post about 5 years ago, and that's not been addressed the whole 20 months you were on the board to fix this decentralization problem. And that's on you guys, if you weren't taking that and fixing that, knowing that that's a problem. Because I've been to every single meeting since last January, and I never once heard
Actually,
any
we've taken a lot of
discussion.
steps to.
What's that?
We've taken a lot of steps to solve that decentralization problem.
It has not done anything to get us in good shape with this audit currently. So if you'd taken a lot of steps, we wouldn't be sitting where we are right now, 15 months late with an audit. And that's just a fact of life.
Actually, the fact of life is that if the policies to fix that finding of decentralization that have been put in place by the board, if they were to be followed by the various county departments and department heads, then our decentralization problem would be a lot less. I'm not saying it would be zero, but it would be a lot less than it is right now.
And how can you make that statement? The department heads, you guys set the policy. And do you support our sheriff? By the way, I had to ask you that. Do you support the sheriff of our county?
Well, based on an email I sent him a couple of weeks ago, I'm not sure I can answer yes to that anymore.
Yes. And you're not supporting him because is it because he instructed them not to use the time clocks? Is that why you're not supporting him?
That certainly has something to do with it.
What's that?
That certainly has something to do with it.
That has something to do with it? You know, we all sat here and watched him say he was lying to the public for trying to protect his department. Their hazard pay was taken away. He said the time clocks have been a problem. The department heads I've seen have been saying some of your policies don't incorporate. The judge even came to a legislative meeting saying that, it was Judge Harlow, that your policies were not working with the departments and how you were doing them. But you know, you don't care. You're going through pushing this agenda that you want through without listening to your department heads. And if the department heads don't agree with you, then they're corrupt. Are they liberal? Are they a rhino? Are there something else? It's enough. It's enough. The disrespect that was shown to him and the disrespect by you from gaveling him when you let Ms. Fernhaber speak out over and over again, not good. Not good.
I paid absolute attention to what Judge Harlow had to say, and I think we might even have made some changes to that policy.
Can you speak up a little?
I paid attention to what Judge Harlow had to say, and I think we might even have made some changes to that policy based on what she had to say.
I still couldn't hear that. Are you able to speak into the microphone?
Yeah, sorry.
This is not good in this room.
Sorry. Yeah, you're right, and I'm sorry. I paid absolute attention to what Judge Harlow said that evening, and I think we might have even made some changes to that policy based on what she had to say. Yeah. So, anyway, go ahead, Jake.
Jeremy, I think part of the problem here is your credibility. You keep saying all kinds of things. You say there's a lot of problems with the previous audits. That doesn't mean anything unless you tell us what the problems are. You've told us we couldn't farm, but we can. You said you threatened people if they voted to farm, that you might take them to court. You explained or tried to explain that Steve Malega of the health department was missing $90,000, but they weren't. So your problem is the public no longer believes much of anything anyone said. I know that. I don't believe what Kirk Allen said. I don't necessarily believe what you said, because too much of the time and too many of the times, what you said has no credibility. I mean, you tell us we can't farm. You can't stop us from farming. You can't really stop us from doing anything. Where do you get the idea that you can write laws? I mean, where did this county board come up with the idea that we can write rules for all the departments? I mean, who gave us the permission to do that? Who gave us the permission to pass a rule that everybody had to use a time clock? They're not using them, and I don't think some of them are going to be using them. I mean, this goes on and on and on, Jerry. This has been going on for 4 years or 5 years. We've been listening to all these stories of crime and corruption, but there's no crime or corruption. Our county engineer was supposed to have done something wrong. You ran him out of the county. Your friends did. He didn't do anything wrong. There's no one that's done anything wrong. Well, never was a time when we couldn't farm, and you know it, Jeremy. Why do you keep sitting up there and going over and over the same thing? You went over time clocks for months. Didn't do you any good because the health department, they're not going to use time clocks. So what you have a problem with is the community, the bulk of them don't have any faith in what goes on. I think they don't know what to believe. I don't know what to believe. So where's your list of the problems that we had in the previous audit? I don't see them. I mean, I see someone say Shelby County First lied about everything. Where's the list of the lies? You have any idea? I've been called a liar, you've been called one. I mean, we got a giant mess here and no one wants to straighten it out. This is our money, Jeremy. This is my money, my friend's money. I go to the county board meeting over the weekend in Galena, Illinois. They already have their 2023 audit done. They're not talking about the 2022 that should have been done a long time ago. There's no more excuses. We've had it, Jeremy. It should have been done. I sat over there with a couple of friends in the morning. One of them paid almost $100,000 in property taxes. Another one paid $85,000. They want to know what happened to their money. That's what we want. This isn't mystery, Jeremy. This is adding and subtracting. This is taking what you had and adding your revenue and deducting the expenses. I mean, it doesn't take a brain surgeon to do an audit. I mean, it takes some knowledge. So they came in here and said they could get it done, I don't know, what was it, 14 months ago or something? Why did they tell us that? Why are we getting them for another audit? They can't finish the one they started. Why in the world would you have them get an audit from them? Aren't they friends with Mr. Hamlin? Hasn't he been their lawyer? I suppose all that's okay. So do you think we should pay attention to everything that's said here?
Is that all?
I'm done.
Public comment?
I wasn't gonna say anything, but you were talking about the sheriff department. You understood how they needed the more training, that this time system doesn't work with that, like the cookie cutter out of the box.
Yeah, it's called Box. It's called Box
So you
software.
understand why the sheriff department is having trouble.
Yeah, I would like to know what issues they're having.
Yeah, but I understand now from just what Jeremy said, that there's like some controversy going on between him and the sheriff's department over the time system. And Jeremy, you just said they need training. You would spend ARPA funds to help them understand it. So why would they be punished for something they don't understand?
Can I answer that?
Yes, please.
I don't think nobody on the board wants the sheriff's department to fail. At least I don't.
Right.
And I've talked to other board members. There seems to be the consensus that nobody talks to each other on any issues or none of this being discussed, so there's no concern about the audits or stuff. There's a lot of concern because we're taxpayers too. I mean,
Yeah, I wasn't.
we're all taxpayers. I spent 26 and a half years at Department of Corrections working in IT. So I've been on the front lines, been in the maximum security prisons, so I know the stress of the job.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that when you've got a stressful job with all them hours, the last thing you want to do is administrative paperwork. So if there's anything that we can do with this to make this easier for them, then we need to look into doing it.
Right.
But on the flip side of that, saying we don't need any kind of a timekeeping system, that we can just do it on paper, there's no state agencies I know of that do that anymore. I worked for CMS the last 3 years. It's required. Timekeeping policy was required for all state agencies.
Mm-hmm.
But on the flip side of that, all departments report any problems immediately, they're addressed, and certification of all employees the first week of employment is mandated, so that they don't go on the job and they're like, well, I don't know how to do.
So have they been trained on this?
Well, probably not to the level they need to be.
Okay, I would just want, I didn't want their pay to be harmed in any way or held back on any hours or delayed till the next week because they don't understand a system that has been acknowledged that they haven't been trained on properly.
Sure, and the last thing the board wants to do is punish frontline employees for not understanding how to put their time in. There also is a supervisory role there. I was a supervisor for years. I had employees, 8 of them underneath of me. I had to make sure that their timekeeping got correctly. So there is a supervisory role here. The supervisor, whoever that is, needs to make sure that their employee timekeeping is being done and corrected. And if there's any issues, then they need to go to whoever they need to get them fixed as soon as possible.
Yeah,
Because there's statutes and there's requirements by
That's what I thought,
by state
sure.
law and federal law that have to be met for timekeeping.
Right, I thought the sheriff was going to the treasurer's office with the state's attorney to try to talk about those issues that they were having. That's what she stated at the meeting.
Well, there seems to be some static there, so what probably needs to happen is what I mentioned earlier in the beginning of the meeting. There needs to be a list of problems presented to the board. Maybe one person assigned to look at them responses. What is broke? Get in touch with the vendor. Can this be fixed within your software? What's it going to cost us? And use the ARPA funds. I would hate to see the ARPA funds
Yeah.
go out at the end of the year and we could have fixed this with them funds.
Did the timekeeping system come with any kind of training, or was it the promise that it would work with the sheriff's department?
It obviously did, because there's some departments that don't have any problem.
Right,
But
the
I'm
sheriff's
guessing
department
that
is
it's the
different.
departments that work 8 to 5, Monday through Friday.
Right.
You got your basic holidays, you don't have shift differentials, you don't have overtime, you don't have 10-hour shifts or swing shifts.
We don't have the right equipment.
Was it, that's what I was wondering, was the timekeeping system sold as a system that would work with the sheriff's department?
I can't answer that, but I very much
We're talking about
doubt.
spending money, so I'm wondering if that could be checked into before we spend ARPA funds on something that possibly came with the program you guys bought.
I thought a couple meetings back, we discussed like that they had specific experience with sheriff's departments. Did that not come up, that they could handle all that shift differential?
There are sheriff's departments in other counties. I want to say Fulton County was one of them, but I think there were at least 3 or 4 counties that were found in a quick, just a quick search that have larger sheriff's departments than we do, that are using the same software, the same hardware, the same company, and are not having any problems.
Then maybe they got trained, I don't know.
Well, I did talk to Brian personally after the first board meeting, Chris, and what I suggested, encouraged him to do, was to find out the departments that are using this software and find out how they fixed their issues that they were having. Because that's what I did when I was working with software and we had these issues. I would contact other state agencies and say, what are you guys doing to get around this problem? And then they would say, we did this and this and this. Sometimes it requires doing some stuff on paper and then entering it on the computer. But what I would like to see, if they're doing that, is if they can be fixed at the vendor level, where they can just sign onto their program and do it right there. Have it auto-calculate whatever it needs to do for the time differential, to the hazard pay, whatever that's incorporated there.
The biggest part of the problem that we have is a desire to do it versus a desire to not do it.
Well, and that's the other thing. We got to iron that out. We've got to make absolutely sure that's what's happening. And if that's what's happening, then that's an issue.
Yeah. I just so happened to find, switching gears if we might for a moment. No, wait, it's still your time.
It's still
That's okay, I was just, when you started talking about spending ARPA money, I wrote down, was the timekeeping system sold as a system that would work for the sheriff's department? I just wondered, was it? Were you told that it would work with the shift differentials? And if not, if you were, then you shouldn't have to spend ARPA funds to make it work.
It will work if we want it to work, because there are others who are using the exact same thing through the same company and all that, and have
no difficulties at all.
But going back, we need to know what the problems are before we can address them.
Right.
We need to know the specifics, not just throw them back, we don't like it, we don't want to use it. We need the specific problems. And maybe I need to sit down with Brian myself and look at it from a programmer's point of
Yeah,
view,
that might be good.
and see what the issues are.
Yeah, you fix the video
Well,
equipment.
that's simple stuff, but this is complex problems. Believe me, when we had 11,000 correctional employees, we had guards
I-
that couldn't even write using these
Jeremy is
systems.
sitting there saying it's like lack of the desire of the sheriff to make it work.
No, it could be lack of employees, and then you're caught in the supervisory position, and we had that at corrections. We had employees that just absolutely would not do it, and we know they never did do it. The supervisors ended up doing it.
Anything else?
No, that's all.
Okay. Public comment?
Can you speak, were you going to say something? I thought you were going to say something you found.
Oh, yeah, you said you didn't want to switch gears.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt public comment, so any other public comment? Okay, all right, we'll close public comment then, but I did happen to run across, this is from Weston Company, the auditor. This is dated May 27th, 2020. I'm obviously not going to read the whole 4 pages, but you can have it if you want it. Just to spot pick a few things, it says Shelby County lacks sufficient internal controls over the preparation of financial statements. It noted specifically the sheriff's office did not employ a systematic process for tracking employee hours and calculating wages and overtime.
That was a finding. That's listed under findings.
This is a letter. This
Okay,
is-
because I've seen the findings, I believe, for what you're referencing, and it's not listed as a finding.
Okay. So there was that, and then I believe this is the audit itself, and the findings, of course, will be at the end.
I believe the balance statement weren't right. That was the big problem. That was the recommendation, was about the balance statements.
Okay, that was the payroll audit on the sheriff's department. And that's another letter from the following year.
Can't change the numbers on the board, the members on the board.
It would go to 11. It would go to 11 or something, but they can make it 12 and keep us.
That's if the districts remain the same, which there's nothing saying they will, so.
It can't change until the census is taken,
Correct.
and yes.
Okay, that concludes the agenda. Do we have a motion? Mr. McCormick makes the motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Keenan seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
That went on about 30 minutes too long. Too much conversation. You need to come to a township meeting. We address items on the agenda,
It's 15 minutes.
and we are done.
Jeremy, I don't believe you can change the number of the board members before the next census.
We're not trying to,
We're not
Jay.
even trying.
Are you not trying?
No,
Okay,
no.
okay.